Hello and welcome to the Cloud Academy Enterprise Platform demonstration. My name is Jermaine Hernandez. I am a sales engineer here with Cloud Academy, and I am very excited to be here with you today to introduce you to some of the great benefits that we can offer with our platform. Thank you in advance to all of you for joining. We really appreciate your time and hope you get all of your questions answered and get the most out of this demonstration. With that, we can jump right on in and get started. For today's demonstration, I'm going to begin with the administrative panel. I think this is the best way for especially potential administrators of the platform to really have a deep understanding of how to get the platform off the ground. This will include insight into reporting. From there, pardon me, I will move into the end user experience where you'll get to see exactly what your learners would be viewing. And at the very end, we can talk all about customization. So let's get started. What you're currently seeing on your screen is the administrative panel. So behind the scenes, after we've invited all of our end users via email, the very first step that we're going to have to do is to organize all of our members into teams. So this takes place within the organization panel. The beautiful part about the organization panel is that we can replicate any hierarchy, regardless of how complicated it might be. So if you would like a true representation of your organizational hierarchy, that's something that we can build out. However, you might have a variety of approaches to how you organize these online classrooms, if you will. So perhaps you're allowing end users to sign up for particular certification initiatives. At that point, we can even help by tracking cohorts. And another common use case that we see amongst our enterprise customers is simply doing it by job roles. This will also come back up when we discuss the training library. So keep in mind this job role organization as well. The reason I'm discussing the organizational hierarchy, if you will, is going to be the fact that we introduce two new roles here, where the administrator of the platform may be all-knowing and all-seeing. A manager for a given team or multiple teams for that matter can be thought of as a small-scale administrator. So for any team that they are listed as the manager, they can edit the team, assign training to that team, but most importantly, view data for that team. So this is one of the ways that we help not only spread the responsibility in managing the enterprise platform, but also to silo the data. Our members will simply be our end users. Once we've organized all of our users, we're ready to begin focusing our attention on training. So expanding the training tab over on the left-hand side, you'll notice that the first step in training for us will be a pre-assessment. Now, a pre-assessment is a pivotal part of any high-quality education, in our opinion. So we offer pre-assessments in a variety of formats, in a couple formats. So what you're seeing first are our written exams. Take special note of the duration. We intentionally want to keep these on the shorter side to not discourage end users from the moment that they get into the platform. But these pre-assessments are so valuable because they are getting an understanding, a baseline understanding of where skills lie today, which is also kickstarting our skill profile. We'll take a look at that in a second. In addition to written exams, we also offer hands-on labs, in this case, challenges as pre-assessments. We'll discuss the variety of labs that Cloud Academy offers during the end user experience, but for now, it's important to note that a challenge lab is completely unguided. This means that we put your end users in a real environment and ask them to showcase how they can get from A to Z as a true test of practitioner level skills. So upon completion, the pre-assessments will help us understand what kind of skill gaps exist across our teams. This can be broken down by potentially platform if you are taking a multi-cloud vendor approach, or even by platform domain. For those of you who don't know, we do offer a customer success manager to all of our clients. So this can also be a fantastic time to reach out to them and perhaps even get some content recommendations. One thing that is unique to us regarding the pre-assessments, we are amongst the only that offer the individual user assessment score. From an academic standpoint, this is incredibly valuable. Somebody that may have scored lower, had more trouble with that pre-assessment, might need a little bit more foundational work, whereas somebody that scored a lot higher might be ready for something more advanced. Ultimately, we're not putting content in front of a user that is either far too easy or far too advanced, thus discouraging them in either case. So as an enterprise, we've organized our members, we've understood the skill gaps that exist on a particular team or set of teams, and now with that understanding, we're ready to begin assigning training through a training plan. You're going to hear me say training plan and learning path throughout the rest of the demonstration. Simply note that the training plan for now is the delivery mechanism to assign training. If you hear myself or anyone else within Cloud Academy talking about accountability, we're really talking about a training plan. So going into assign a training plan, I have the ability to assign it to either an individual member or to a team as a whole. I'm going to go ahead and stick with that same team we were taking a look at. At step 2, you'll then see all of our out-of-the-box training plans. I mentioned that you do have the ability to customize particular content, and we'll talk about that more in depth towards the end, but that will be tagged where appropriate. Otherwise, you can simply filter by a variety of topics at the top, whether it be by platform or any other topic. From here, we can select our first training plan. Perhaps we have a lofty goal of upskilling our cloud architects and they're brand new to this learning track, so we're going to go ahead and give them the starter track. Step 3, here's where we talk all about accountability. For any training plan that's assigned, whether that's coming from an administrator or a team manager, we're going to be communicating to you 2 key metrics: content duration and average time to completion. Based off of these 2 metrics, you'll be able to set some expectations around a weekly time commitment. So simply adjust this slider and you'll notice the due date will adjust with me. So as we increase and devote more time towards training, that due date will get closer and closer. On the other hand, if I know for a fact that I need to be ready by mid-January, perhaps my end users need to be able to have at least a conversational understanding of some of the cloud architect stuff happening with AWS. So you can set a deadline for that project and see what kind of weekly time commitment it would take to ensure that you are on track. The last couple of key pieces that I'll mention regarding training plans, especially the items that make it unique, is going to be the ability to sequence training plans. So momentarily, you'll see the training plan that I just assigned come to life here for this team. The start date will be today's date. The due date will be the date that we selected together. But then this is going to allow us to begin stacking those training plans. I'll give my demo environment a second to load that training plan. Meanwhile, I'll confirm and assign the next training plan. Ultimately, what this is going to build out for you will be a timeline along the bottom of these training plans that can help you better predict where you'll be in your upskilling journey. In addition to that, a number of our existing clients really leverage this ability to stack training plans in order to maintain a momentum towards learning. So some of our really high achieving customers are scheduling these out for a full 9 or even 12 months in advance. So just to reiterate, as your end users wrap up this training plan, even if it's well in advance of that deadline you set, they will seamlessly transition to the next training plan and so on and so on. Lastly, regarding training plans, of course, we're also going to help you monitor and track progress as content is consumed. So both managers and administrators will have insight into the individual user progress, but also very helpful in my opinion is how they're tracking against that deadline you set. Now, the Cloud Academy platform will automatically send a maximum of 3 nudges as end users fall behind, so you can let us be the bad guys. But if you're particularly concerned about an end user, you can always come in here and send a manual nudge. This will then allow you to completely customize the email and add any details that you would like. Do we need to get you a mentor, some additional time in the lab? How can we get you back on track? From an onboarding perspective, what we've done so far is we've organized our members into teams. We've assessed and understood skill gaps. We then directly address those skill gaps through the use of training plans, where we were able to set some expectations and create some predictability in our upskilling. Ultimately, this is going to lead to some very powerful intelligence. I am a self-professed data nerd, so please pardon me if I get too excited in this part of the platform. But the first piece of data that I'll introduce you to will be the analytics. Perhaps you've seen something very similar to this. This is really simply a consumption metric. So we can see how our end users are spending their time across any of the learning activities that Cloud Academy has to offer. And we'll also have an organizational leaderboard that will update with us as we drill down across any of these learning activities. So currently, this might be very beneficial to someone perhaps in HR, in particular if you're tying consumption metrics to MBOs or anything to that end. But how this can be even more helpful, in particular for cloud migration journeys or cloud journeys in general, if certifications are important to you, even if it's not to directly obtain them, but actually be able to conversationally have knowledge around this space, we're going to be able to drill down into, say, exams. Now our leaderboard is showing us any user that has taken any exam, but we can take it one step further and drill down into a particular practice certification exam. I'll show you later in the library, but we have pre-built certification paths for all 3 public cloud vendors. So as end users are taking the final exam in that path, which does mirror the real world exam, you're going to have the ability to drill down into that specific exam. In this case, AZ500, as security is going to be at front of mind. And now we're seeing precisely who has taken this exam, some high level statistics, and the last score obtained. In particular, this last score column is very highly utilized by a number of our existing clients. Here is where they are setting an internal threshold for their end users and saying, show me you can get at least an 80, 85, whatever the case may be, on the practice exam in Cloud Academy, then I know you're prepared for the real world exam. So those are the analytics, which ultimately brings me to one of the key differentiators for us here at Cloud Academy, and that's going to be the skill profiles. So the skill profiles will be where we're tracking exactly how our upskilling is going. So you'll see a skill growth rate down here. And one of my favorite aspects regarding our skill growth rate is that it has absolutely nothing to do with consumption. And this is only being fed data from areas where end users are proving knowledge. This means that they are coming, pardon me. This means that the only data being fed into the skill growth rate will be quizzes, exams, and a variety of labs. And I'll show you exactly what I mean with those labs here momentarily. This also tends to be very well received by your C-level suite of folks, as this is a clear representation of ROI and understanding those upskilling across teams. Once more, we have an organizational leaderboard. And again, just like before, as we drill down across a variety of topics, both the skill growth rate and the leaderboard will update with us. So you'll be able to drill down by concept, particular cloud domains, or even a specific platform. So I can drill down into, say, Amazon Web Services, and now I'll be able to see high-level details regarding our strengths across all platform domains. But I can still get even more granular from here, drill down into a particular domain, then I'll have an understanding of how we're performing across any subdomains or individual services. This might be a good time to select a service for that important upcoming project, but also very important, we're having a clear understanding of how our AWS security skills have grown across time, our top AWS security users, in case we need to put someone strong on that project, or differentiate across teams. Ultimately, this is going to help you in leveraging the team or individual strengths and assuring that it's aligning with that project. That concludes the administrative side of the house for the enterprise. Now I'm going to go ahead and transition to the end user experience. Upon logging in, end users will land on this dashboard. One of the first things that they'll be able to access, if assigned, are those pre-assessments, where they'll be able to visit any that have been assigned, see which ones those are, and of course, jump right into them to get them completed. Once completed, and you've also assigned training, the training plan tab comes to life. Here is where end users will see that transparency we were talking about regarding expectations towards training. And as a little bit of gamification, we'll also have a team training plan leaderboard here to encourage users to keep up with one another. Again, to reiterate, this is simply for members on the same team. We also have an activity tab. This feels very much like Netflix, which we've all become far too familiar with over the past couple of years. So recently watched, in this case played. In addition to that, topics for you. This is a recommendation engine built by our incredibly talented data science team. You'll also have the ability to bookmark anything that you might want to revisit later, including explanations to quiz questions. And of course, we'll also be able to track and maintain certifications as those are obtained. We are still beta testing both this and our dashboard, but this will ultimately provide some incredible insight and understanding into what certifications exist within your organization, where they are concentrated, and even which ones are going to be expiring soon. We also have a mobile app in both iOS and Android. So whenever we can all travel again, commute again, consume content on the go. We also have the ability to self-assign a training plan. So for any end users that are interested in upskilling in something that maybe they're not doing in their day-to-day work life, but they'd like to pursue on their own time, this allows them to self-assign a training plan. The most valuable part, however, in my opinion, from the end user dashboard will be the individual user skill score. The skill profile we saw earlier was the 1,000-foot view across the entire organization. And in this case, this is simply Michael's upskilling. And this is where we want to provide Michael, really empower is the better word for Michael, to empower him to take responsibility of his own upskilling. So the data here will be represented in the exact same fashion, but end users will also have access to a much shorter, smaller leaderboard, if you will, because they'll only see top 10 users for a given category and then my relation to them. And I'll explain how this is best utilized. So for example, I can see that I am by far weakest in Amazon Web Services as it pertains to platforms. So I can drill down, see my upskilling, perhaps see what areas or domains are going to be most important, or perhaps even which domains we have yet to begin, along with some calls to action. But more importantly, now I can see who the top AWS users within my organization are, and Michael now knows who he can turn to for guidance. Perhaps tap Olivia on the shoulder and say, hey, do you mind sitting down with me to talk about X, Y, and Z, or to help me complete this lab, or whatever the case may be. Ultimately, the end user experience really comes to life through our training library. The training library is in fact public facing, so I encourage all of you to come take a look whenever you would like. We also have a very robust search functionality, so please also utilize this function. Otherwise, all of our content is organized, as I mentioned earlier, by pre-built role-based training plans. So if you already know what roles you're in need of, you can come in and see what it takes to get from starter to proficient. Otherwise, all of our content is broken down into different categories. So you'll see all three public cloud vendors near the top. You'll see other emerging tech and even things, of course, like programming, in case you need to brush up on some Python. And of course, even things like DevOps. Ultimately, drilling down into any of these categories, you'll get to see exactly how those learning activities break down. And this is a good time to talk about our different lab environments. So we theoretically offer 4 different types of labs. We have a guided hands-on lab, which you will get to see here live momentarily. We also have those unguided challenge labs, as we discussed earlier. Third, we have a generic lab playground to test any newfound skills without worrying about breaking something in our production environment. And the fourth type of lab is a completely custom lab that can mirror your tech stack to get some real thoughtful experience for your end users as they prepare for those production environments. Narrowing down on the learning paths, as I mentioned, we've already pre-built learning paths for all certifications. Amongst the most popular is going to be our AWS Solutions Architect Associate. And where the training plan was the mechanism to assign training, the learning path is how we organize our content on a given topic. So here is where you'll realize that we follow a learn, do, and validate model, where learning is happening in courses, we're doing through the hands-on labs, and we're validating through exams and quizzes, and even a little bit through the labs. Before I jump into that, I will point out, if you expand the description, you'll get to see an intended audience along with learning objectives in the event that any end users want to ensure it's the appropriate level. They will also receive a Cloud Academy Certificate of Excellence upon completion. Jumping into the end user experience, I'll begin by showing you the courses. One of the key areas to understand regarding our courses is that we understand that no user really wants to receive a 2-hour video and be expected to see it in one sitting. So instead, what we've done is we've taken a micro learning approach where you can better plan if you only have 45 minutes, how far you can get perhaps in these courses. You also have the ability to speed up or slow down the video and even follow along with the transcript. One of the great benefits of this approach to coursework is also a very robust indexing of our library. So if this 3-minute AWS batch course was very helpful to you, you can simply search AWS batch and pull up this 3-minute video. Next, and something that I definitely think sets us apart, will be our labs. Our labs are unique to us for 2 important reasons. First, our labs are text-based. So as changes come from any of the providers, then all we need to do is simply update a screenshot or step-by-step instructions, and then our lab environment is up to date. The other is that you will be utilizing Cloud Academy provided credentials included in the cost of a license to access a real environment. You can take these labs as many times as you'd like, but I'll go ahead and open up this environment. I am personally a new father, so back when I had the time to do this kind of studying, then I would typically open these up in 2 separate windows. Then it's pretty easy to see how I'm simply copying and pasting the username followed by the password. And just like that, we have spun up our own instance of an AWS Management Console. The final key piece to understanding why these are so valuable is going to be that we bridge the connection between our lab environment and the console environment. So once the end user has to complete something in the console, they'll eventually come across a validation check. So these checks are important for end users because this notifies them if they were successful, thus they're able to move on to the next step. Secondly, this is what is being fed directly into that skill profile. If I stop here because I am thoroughly confused, then I would see this skill decrease. If I return, fix this validation check, and end up wrapping up the lab, then all of those skills will only increase. So this is one of the ways that we are validating that knowledge. Now, lastly, end users will also experience those ongoing assessments. If we're talking about a certification path, as we are in this case, I mentioned it earlier, but the final exam in that learning path is going to mirror the real world exam in terms of time and number of questions. And as you'll see here momentarily, we also encourage users to take it multiple times as we do have a large bank of questions. So it is only to the end user's benefit to be very prepared for this certification exam. Jumping into the exam, I brought up our data science team earlier. Here they implemented one of my favorite pieces of technology within the platform, and that's going to be our item response theory. So what item response theory tells us is, as we take into consideration questions in sets of 5, if I really struggled, maybe didn't get a single one of these questions correct, then for the next set of 5 questions, I will see a slight decrease in difficulty. If I knocked it out the park and got all 5 correct, then I'm going to see a slight increase in difficulty. So as you can see, even within the same 65 question assessment, we're continuously gauging precisely how those skills are growing and changing. We do recommend end users skip any questions that they don't know the answer to. All of us can get lucky once, but then the platform will assume that we have knowledge of a skill that we don't actually have. We will also be given the opportunity to revisit any skipped questions. But the after exam report, in my opinion, will be very, very helpful to end users because we understand that providing a score is far from sufficient. So we've also created complete transparency around what skills were assessed, how the score was impacted, more calls to action, and scrolling down towards the bottom will be an answer review for all questions where we provide the correct answer and explanation, and we link to external documentation for further reading where appropriate. This is a high-level brief walkthrough of the end user experience. Now we can wrap things up by talking about customization. Absolutely everything that we've seen thus far can be customized. This includes those pre-assessments. We simply ask our customers to work alongside their customer success manager for those. But just about everything else can be customized through the UI. So this includes the ability to customize some hands-on labs if you would want to play around with those. But a more common use case will be that a number of our clients want to upload a custom resource. In particular, as security rules and whatnot change, you can upload any flat file here. So it might be a recording, MP3, a PDF. If you would like to ensure that end users consumed the content, you can then generate questions against it, throw those questions into a custom exam, and lastly, add that custom exam to your own custom learning path. Let me show you what I mean. When I jump into create and customize a learning path, or anything for that matter, I can build it completely from scratch if I already have all of those materials in question, or you can clone absolutely anything from our library. I'll stick with that Solutions Architect Associate learning path we were looking at. And at step 2, you can see all of the individual steps that make up this learning path. So in particular, if you think that there is far too much time involved in this, then this is a great time for you to remove any labs, exams, and courses that you are not going to find relevant for your day-to-day work life, for the end users for that matter. But then we can come on down to the bottom and add steps to provide additional internal context. So now in one fluid motion, I am able to upload that resource that I added. I customized an exam to make sure that they reviewed it, and we even customized a hands-on lab. All three are then added to the bottom, so now it becomes simply a drag and drop. And we have ourselves a custom learning path. Lastly, the final step will showcase exactly what skills are aligned, especially if you duplicate it. Based on what you added, you'll then be able to add additional skills for tracking. And on top of all of that, we can even help add additional internal business skills that you might like to track here so that you can also track those alongside this cloud upskilling. So this ultimately concludes the demonstration of the platform. We took a look at the administrative side of the house, including reporting. We took a look at what the end user experience is, and we had a brief conversation regarding customization. Please ensure to throw all of your questions into the chat, and I'll continue to answer those as they come in. Other than that, again, thank you very much for your time. We are incredibly grateful for that. And you will also be receiving a end of webinar survey. So please do us a huge favor and complete that. It is a quick survey, and we are always looking for feedback as we are always looking to improve. So thank you very much, and see you next time.